Dr. Maeve Carter leaned over her cluttered workstation, squinting at a holographic model of alien DNA. The double helix shimmered with unnatural colors, twisting in ways that defied Earth's basic understanding of genetics. She loved the challenge of xenobiology, but after hours of running tests, even she needed a break. As she reached for her long cold coffee, her comms console buzzed with an urgent, unfamiliar tone. "This is Dr. Carter," she said, pressing the button. The screen flickered to life, revealing a coalition liaison officer, his crisp uniform and stiff posture radiating authority. "Dr. Carter, your presence is required immediately aboard the Valet-Har flagship Ecliptica. The request comes directly from Commander Karel Zion." Maeve blinked, momentarily stunned. The Valet-Har? The mysterious, hyper-advanced species whose ships rarely docked near Coalition outposts. They were rumored to consider other species inferior, interacting only when strictly necessary. And now one of their commanders was asking for her by name? "Commander Karel Zion?" she repeated, her voice laced with skepticism. "I think you've got the wrong xenobiologist. I'm not exactly on their speed dial." The liaison's tone turned grave. "It's no mistake, Doctor. The commander was specific. He insists on your expertise. A shuttle is en route to transport you. Prepare to leave within the hour." Before Maeve could protest further, the transmission ended. She stared at the blank screen, her mind racing. This wasn't just unusual, it was unprecedented. And the fact that she had no choice in the matter didn't sit well with her. The shuttle ride was brief, but the tension inside was suffocating. Maeve found herself flanked by two Valet-Har escorts, their gleaming, bioluminescent armor reflecting the dim light of the cabin. They didn't speak or even glance her way, their stillness unnerving. When they arrived at the Ecliptica, Maeve was struck by its sheer scale. The flagship loomed like a living mountain of obsidian and crystal, its surfaces pulsing faintly as though the ship itself were alive. The docking bay was equally intimidating, its sleek, sterile design making her feel like an intruder. As she was led through a series of corridors, Maeve tried to suppress her rising anxiety. She was used to dealing with alien species, her job demanded it, but the Valet-Har were in a league of their own. No one in the coalition knew much about their biology, their culture, or their motives, and now she was walking straight into the heart of their domain. Finally, her escorts stopped in front of an imposing set of doors. They slid open silently, revealing a massive chamber bathed in soft, bluish light. At its center stood Commander Karel Zion. He was unlike any alien Maeve had encountered. His towering frame was humanoid but otherworldly, covered in a sleek exoskeleton that shimmered like polished obsidian. Lines of faint blue light pulsed along his body, converging at the edges of his face, which was adorned with sharp, symmetrical ridges. His eyes, glowing faintly silver, locked onto her with an intensity that made her want to take a step back. "Dr. Carter," Karel said, his deep, resonant voice echoing in the chamber. "You came." Maeve forced herself to maintain eye contact, though her instincts screamed at her to look away. "Not much of a choice, was there?" she replied, trying to mask her unease with a touch of sarcasm. Karel tilted his head slightly, as if studying her response. "Humans are known for their resourcefulness. I require that resourcefulness now." She crossed her arms. "What exactly do you require, Commander? I'm a xenobiologist, not a politician or a diplomat. If this is about negotiations, I'm the wrong person for the job." The faint glow along Karel's body dimmed, almost imperceptibly. "It is not politics that brings you here, Doctor. It is my body." Maeve blinked, caught off guard. "Your body?" "Yes," he said, stepping closer. Despite his deliberate movements, his presence was overwhelming, like standing in the path of a storm. "I am afflicted by a condition my own healers cannot explain. It spreads through me like a shadow, and I fear it may soon affect others of my kind. You are to examine me and uncover the cause." The request was absurd. No, impossible. "With all due respect, Commander, I know nothing about Valet-Har physiology. Your species hasn't exactly been forthcoming with information. That is why you are here," Karel said. You will have full access to what you need. Time is of the essence. The survival of my people may depend on it. Maeve hesitated, torn between the gravity of his words and the sheer absurdity of the situation. Why me? She finally asked. Carell's glowing eyes softened, just slightly. Humans have a talent for solving what others cannot. I have no time for pride or tradition. I need your perspective. The weight of his words settled heavily on her. This wasn't just about science, it was about trust, something the Valehar rarely extended. Maeve sighed, resigning herself to the task ahead. Fine, she said. I'll do it. But if I'm going to figure this out, you'll need to cooperate fully. No secrets. Carell inclined his head. Agreed. As she prepared to begin, Maeve couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far bigger and far more dangerous than she'd anticipated. The medical chamber aboard the Ecliptica was nothing like the sterile labs Maeve was used to. The walls pulsed faintly, as if alive, their crystalline surfaces resonating with a low hum. Instruments of unknown purpose floated in midair, seemingly guided by invisible forces. Maeve felt like she had stepped into an alien cathedral rather than a medical facility. Carell Zion stood at the center, his towering form rigid with tension. His glowing silver eyes followed her every move, though he remained silent as she unpacked her portable diagnostic tools. All right, Commander, Maeve said, setting her scanner on the hovering table beside him. I'll need a baseline understanding of your physiology before I can figure out what's wrong. Start with the basics. How does your body work? Carell hesitated, the faint blue light tracing his exoskeleton dimming. The Valehar body is a symbiosis, he said, his voice quieter than before. Organic and crystalline, united. The organic sustains, the crystalline amplifies. Together we function. Maeve frowned. Amplifies? Amplifies what? Consciousness, Carell replied simply, as if that explained everything. Maeve resisted the urge to press further. She activated her scanner and began sweeping it over Carell's torso. The readings flooded her screen with complex data, half of which the device struggled to interpret. His internal structure was a marvel. A lattice of bioluminescent crystals intertwined with flesh and blood vessels, both pulsing in perfect harmony. The crystals appeared to carry energy, not unlike electrical signals in the human nervous system, but far more advanced. Her brow furrowed as the scanner beeped. Your crystalline structures show irregular patterns, she said, zooming in on the data. There's something disrupting their alignment. It's like cracks spreading through glass. Carell stiffened, his glowing eyes narrowing. The corruption, he said darkly. Maeve tilted her head. Is it painful? It is disorienting. The balance within me falters. My thoughts grow slower. My movements less precise. As he spoke, Maeve noticed his posture shift slightly, as if the effort to stand tall was becoming too much. For the first time, he looked vulnerable. Have you encountered anything unusual recently? She asked. A new environment? Foreign technology? A toxin? Carell hesitated again. His silence hung heavy in the air before he finally said, during my last mission, I investigated an ancient Valehar relic. It was dormant but emitting faint energy. Shortly after, I began to feel the effects. Maeve leaned forward, intrigued. What kind of energy? Unknown, Carell admitted. It was old, far older than my people. Exposure to an ancient artifact, Maeve muttered, her mind racing. If it's interfering with your crystalline structures, it could be disrupting your symbiotic balance. Did others from your crew experience similar symptoms? None, Carell said. Only I approached the artifact. Maeve noted the way his voice wavered, ever so slightly, as if this admission cost him something. She sighed, setting the scanner aside. Your people must have records on similar artifacts. If I'm going to help you, I'll need access to them. Carell's posture stiffened again, his eyes narrowing. Our archives are restricted. Maeve crossed her arms. Then you'll stay afflicted and I'll go home. Your choice, Commander. For a long moment, Carell stared at her, his glowing eyes unreadable. Then slowly he inclined his head. I will authorize access. But tread carefully, Dr. Carter. The Valehar guard our secrets for good reason. Noted, Maeve said, already turning back to her tools. Let's hope your people's secrets don't kill you before I figure this out. As she resumed her work, Maeve couldn't shake the feeling that Karel's condition was more than a medical anomaly. There was something bigger at play, something ancient and dangerous, and she was walking straight into its path. Maeve sat in the dimly lit research chamber, her screen displaying Valehar schematics that defied anything she had ever seen. Karel had made good on his promise to grant access to their archives, though she could feel the tension in the air every time she requested new data. 2 Valehar technicians hovered in the corner, their glowing eyes watching her every move as if she might steal their secrets. The artifact Karel had mentioned dominated her thoughts. Its description, an ancient crystalline relic pulsing with faint energy, matched none of the data in their meticulously guarded database. What little information the archives provided suggested it was far older than even the Valehar themselves. Commander, Maeve said, breaking the silence. Karel stood across the room, his imposing figure framed by the shifting, bioluminescent walls. This artifact you encountered, did it seem active? Responsive? Karel hesitated, his ridged face tightening. Its energy fluctuated when I approached. I thought it was simply residual. My people believe such relics are dormant remnants of our ancestors. Residual energy doesn't explain this, Maeve replied, gesturing to the holographic display of his corrupted crystalline structures. This artifact isn't dormant. It's interacting with you at a biological level, disrupting your crystalline pathways. Karel stepped closer, his glowing eyes narrowing. Are you suggesting the artifact is alive? Not alive, but active, Maeve said. It's emitting a specific energy frequency. And here's the kicker. Human biology can counteract it. Karel froze. Explain. Maeve brought up another display, overlaying human cellular data with Valehar crystalline patterns. Humans have an enzyme, let's call it adaptase, that allows our bodies to adjust to foreign elements. It's unique to our species. I've run simulations, and this enzyme could stabilize your crystalline balance. But there's a catch. Of course there is, Karel muttered, his voice low. Maeve sighed. The enzyme only works when paired with certain elements found exclusively in Valehar physiology. It's like we were designed to complement each other. And that raises questions I don't have answers to. Karel's glow dimmed, his usual stoicism cracking under the weight of her words. A connection? Engineered? Possibly, Maeve said. Or maybe it's a coincidence. Either way, this enzyme is our best shot at stopping the corruption. But replicating it on a large scale means returning to the artifact and analyzing its energy output. Karel's expression hardened. The High Council will forbid it. They already disapprove of your presence here. Maeve rolled her eyes. Let me guess. They're afraid I'll learn too much about your secrets? They fear weakness, Karel said bluntly. To the Valehar, admitting vulnerability is akin to surrender. They would rather die than reveal this affliction to the coalition. Then convince them otherwise, Maeve said, her voice sharp. Because if we don't act, this corruption will spread. And it won't just be your problem. It'll be everyone's. Karel studied her for a long moment. Then, with a reluctant nod, he said, I will take you to the artifact. But if we do this, we must act quickly. Defiance carries a cost. Maeve stood, gathering her tools. I've never been great at following rules anyway. As they left the chamber, Maeve felt the weight of what lay ahead. The artifact wasn't just a relic. It was a mystery tied to both their species, and unlocking its secrets might change everything. The artifact chamber was unlike anything Maeve had imagined. Deep within the ecliptica, the room pulsed with a faint, otherworldly light. The artifact itself floated at the center, a crystalline monolith glowing with shifting hues of blue and violet. Its surface was smooth yet alive with energy, humming at a pitch that made Maeve's chest tighten. Karel stood beside her, his towering frame tense. His condition had worsened on the journey to the chamber. The glowing pathways on his exoskeleton flickered erratically, and his movements were sluggish. Maeve felt a pang of urgency, She didn't have much time to save him. I'll need to analyze the artifact's energy output, Maeve said, setting up her portable scanner. If I can isolate its frequency, I can synthesize a treatment using your physiology and the enzyme. Carell nodded, though his posture betrayed his discomfort. Do what you must, doctor. But be cautious. This artifact holds power we barely understand. As Maeve worked, the scanner's readings flooded her screen with incomprehensible data. The artifact's energy wasn't static. It pulsed like a heartbeat, interacting with the surrounding environment. Every time Carell stepped closer, the pulses quickened, resonating with his crystalline structure. This thing is attuned to you, Maeve muttered. It's not just reacting. It's amplifying the corruption. Carell's voice was tight. Then it must be stopped. Maeve hesitated. Stopping it might destabilize your body further. Using it, however, Carell's gaze sharpened. Using it, she exhaled, forcing herself to meet his intense, glowing eyes. The artifact's energy can counteract the corruption if harnessed properly. But you'd need to act as the conduit. It'll be dangerous. Your body's already fragile, and this could push it past its limits. Carell stepped forward without hesitation. If it is the only way, then so be it. Maeve clenched her fists, frustration bubbling to the surface. You don't understand. This could kill you. Carell turned to her, his voice steady. If my death secures the survival of my people, it is a price I will pay. But I trust you, Maeve Carter. If anyone can make this work, it is you. His words hit her harder than she expected, but there was no time to dwell. Fine, she said, her voice firm. But if you're trusting me, then listen carefully. You need to stay within the artifact's field while I modulate its energy. Don't move, no matter what happens. Carell nodded, stepping into the artifact's glow. As Maeve calibrated her tools, the artifact's energy intensified, washing over Carell in waves. His glowing pathways flared brightly, then dimmed, flickering in time with the pulses. Carell gritted his teeth, his body trembling as the energy surged through him. Maeve worked frantically, adjusting the modulation to stabilize the frequency. Her heart pounded as Carell dropped to one knee, the glow around him faltering. Hold on, Carell, she shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. With a final adjustment, the artifact emitted a deep, resonating hum. Carell's body stiffened, the flickering glow stabilizing into a steady light. Maeve held her breath as the scanner confirmed it. The corruption was receding. Carell collapsed to the ground, his breathing shallow. Maeve rushed to his side, her chest tightening. Carell, stay with me. Slowly, his glowing eyes opened. You did it. Relief flooded her as she helped him sit up. We did it. But don't scare me like that again. Carell gave a faint, tired smile. Your courage is remarkable, Maeve Carter. My people owe you a debt we cannot repay. Maeve sat back, her exhaustion catching up with her. Let's call it even. Just promise me you'll convince your people to stop hiding. If this corruption taught you anything, it's that you can't face everything alone. Carell nodded solemnly. I will. The Valehar will change. As the artifact dimmed behind them, Maeve realized that this wasn't just about saving Carell. It was about forging a new bond between their species. And while the path ahead was uncertain, she knew one thing for sure. This was only the beginning.